we can kind of take segues and go into different directions. So does that sound good? That sound okay? So yeah, be totally relaxed. We're not on any particular journey here. Yeah, we'll just try and do the best we can. Is that back in Hawaii? Thank you so much. So just so all of you know, some of you here for the first time, this is a well, I can tell you this is these are flowers, by the way. There's a garland of flowers. As you see here, we have an altar with the forms of Krishna and Krishna's different avatars. And later on, maybe we'll get into a little bit about this, about spiritual connection and connecting with divinity on a personal level. But one of the aspects of connecting with divinity on a personal level is to offer God many things every single day. And one of the things we offer is garlands of flowers. And so the speaker gets the opportunity to also get this, to get some extra blessings and grace. So that's what this is. So I'll just begin with some prayers as we just prepare our hearts and minds to try to absorb this knowledge. Actually, it's said when we come into a spiritual assembly of sincere seekers, then what happens is amongst us we actually generate an energy. And in that energy, what's basically happening is that the questions, the doubts, the dilemmas, the decisions deep within our hearts that we have to make, and the guidance which we really seek, that can actually be directly answered in an assembly like this, not because the speaker is a mind reader, although that is one of my talents. No, I'm only joking. But just because of the energy we create amongst ourselves, that actually we begin to get the messages that we need to hear, that helps us to live a more progressive life. So we're just going to say some prayers to kind of open our hearts to that energy, and then I'll present some ideas, and then we'll kind of see where we go today. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once there was a husband and a wife, and they were asking each other, what are your priorities? What are your top 3 priorities in life? So the wife said, number 1, the kids. Number 2, you, my husband. And number 3, myself. So that was very nice. And then the wife looked at the husband and said, what are your priorities? He said, number 1, myself. Number 2, the kids. Number 3, you. So naturally that was a little bit shocking to her. But then he gave the purport. He said, my priority is myself, not selfishly. Because if I understand myself, if I invest in myself, if I unlock the best of myself, then what I can do is when I come to serve my kids, when I come to serve you, I'm bringing the best of myself to you. And therefore, in order for me to do the best I can do for you and the kids, I need to bring the best version of myself to you. And therefore, my own journey and my own development is a priority in my life. So that was very, very nice. Because in today's day and age, often we talk about how spirituality is all about selflessness, and that is definitely true. But one of the foundations of selflessness is self-care, self-discovery, and self-development. Because when we engage in all of those three things, then what happens is we maximize our ability to give selfless service to the world. And today we're talking about Dharma. And Dharma is very, very important because Dharma is probably the central concept to unlocking your own potential. Here on the screen I've put a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. This is very, very significant because every single person in this world has a unique contribution to make to this world. That's not just a nice self-development, motivational, reel for Instagram that hopefully will go viral. No, that's actually a deep philosophical point, because what Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita is that each one of us have a unique nature. Each one of us have a unique psycho-physical makeup. And if we're able to understand that deeply, and if we're able to embrace the abilities, the skills, the personality, the qualities that we've been divinely invested with, and then if we then go on to use that in service to others and service to the world, then we can actually make a profound impact and really bring beauty into people's lives and beauty into our own life. And so Dharma, although Sanskrit words are very difficult to translate, Dharma could be translated in many ways, but literally Dharma means the essence of something. So Dharma means the essence of something in the sense that that thing which cannot be separated. If you take that thing away, then it just wouldn't be that thing anymore. So for example, we say the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. Because if it's not sweet, it ain't sugar, right? The dharma of water is to flow, is liquid. Although water sometimes takes other forms, the real dharma of water is to be fluid in its normal state. And therefore fluidity, as we can say, is the dharma of water. So each one of us have a dharma. And we have, basically, broadly speaking, two types of dharma. What I'm basically sharing with you is what Krishna basically guides Arjuna through in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just putting it maybe in contemporary terms, but when you read the book, you'll be able to actually see how aligned this is. For most people, if you ask them what is success for them in this world, then they will basically mention many of these things on the right. To nurture good relationships, to have good health, to raise a family, to have some kind of position and achievement in the world, security, and leaving some kind of legacy in the world. This is what, for most people, success is. And probably even for us in the room, these are things that we work hard for. And these are important. Yet, even with all of these things, there's always a sense that there's something more. There's also another journey that I'm meant to be going on. There's another purpose to my life. There's something else I should be seeking. And in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna basically comes to this conclusion where he realizes that in my life I've been endeavoring, and I will endeavor for many of these things. And we're not saying they're unimportant or they're irrelevant, but he says to Krishna that I also feel like there's another aspect of my journey that I need to nourish and I need to explore and I need to fulfill. And Krishna basically then goes on to Arjuna and tells him that yes, basically each of us in this world have two sides to our life, and we have two, broadly speaking, dharmas that we're trying to follow. On one side we have a svadharma, which is almost our material purpose, our purpose in the outer world. The svadharma is something which is very individual and unique to each one of us. And svadharma really encompasses our purpose in the immediate realm of living in this world. And so if you remember that previous slide, then you can see all of these things are very much related to your svadharma. They're immediate, they're about your interaction with this world, they're very much about the material side of life, which again we're not saying is unimportant, but yes, these are, we can still say, very, in one sense, material things. But in answer to Arjuna's question, what Krishna says is that you have another side of your dharma or your purpose or your meaning, and that is what we call Sanatan Dharma. So Svadharma literally means your individual purpose, your individual meaning in this life. And Sanatan Dharma literally means your eternal or your ultimate or the universal meaning in every single person's life. And that refers to our spiritual calling, our inner world, our ultimate aspirations to look for happiness and fulfillment and connection on a deeper level. So right at the onset of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna does with Arjuna is he kind of lays this foundation and he says everyone has to pursue both of these things side by side. We have to try to be the best we can in this world and unlock our abilities and talents, and at the same time we have to nourish our inner calling, our spiritual calling. And if we can learn not just to do these two things but to integrate them, then what happens is you generate an energy in your life which is incredibly powerful. So broadly speaking, the two sides to success and dharma are on one side identifying your abilities that you've been given, identifying the facilities that you've been offered according to your fortunes in this life, and then accepting various identities and roles in this world through which you can function and make your contribution. And on the spiritual side, our meaning, our purpose is to develop our character, to elevate our consciousness, and ultimately to find spiritual connection. If someone does all of these things on the left-hand side but doesn't do these things, then they may find that they've met with success, they've achieved what they were looking for, but still a vacuum remains in the heart. And one may also find that if they try to do these things but they don't appropriately find a way in which to function in this world and interact with the environment around them, then their ability to do this will also be hampered because they haven't paid attention to the material or the svadharma side of life. So Krishna, it's interesting that what the Bhagavad Gita does at the beginning is when Arjuna says, like, Krishna, I'm looking for happiness. Krishna doesn't just say to Arjuna, you just have to forget about all the material things and you just have to be a spiritual person, because none of these material things are going to make you happy. That's not actually what Krishna says. Krishna actually says to Arjuna, you have to understand your material identity, you have to strive to be the best you can in the material situation you find yourself in, but then what you have to do is connect that to your deeper spiritual calling and integrate it with your higher, deeper, divine aspirations. And so Krishna says it's not about neglecting the material and just being spiritual, but it's about finding how the material and spiritual integrate together. And this is the most powerful way in which to lead your life. Yeah. So this is basically what I'm basically summarizing to you is the first, second, and part of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the foundation of what Krishna is teaching to Arjuna. So let me just pause there, and instead of just going on a monologue, let me just see whether there are any immediate responses to that, or anything you'd like to ask, or just clarify. Yes.
I've always wondered. Sorry, because there are people online. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this opening. But I've always wondered, how do you know which is your inner calling? I can be good at many things, for instance, but how do I know which path to take? If I'm good at many things, but ultimately I don't know which path to choose. And that is what has been bewildering me for a very long time.
So basically, how do you find your dharma?
Yes. It should be the outer dharma.
Yeah. How do you find this? How do you identify what are your abilities, what are your facilities, and therefore what roles or identity should you adopt in this world?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to go on to that. And I'm definitely going to speak about that. Just before we go on to that, so I will address that, just to see whether there's an immediate just on anything else. Otherwise, shall I just go? Maybe, okay, let me go on to that since you've asked it. So the question you're asking is basically the very same question that Arjuna asks. This is a verse from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Just for those of you, I'll give you a sense of how the Sanskrit sounds. Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhava prachamitvam dharma shamuda chetaha yachreya shanishchitam bruhitan me shishyaste hamsa dhimam tvam prapannam. So this is the beginning of Krishna's imparting wisdom to Arjuna, and it all begins with Arjuna's question, where basically he says, I have a dharma shamuda. Dharma shamuda literally means a dharma confusion. So I'm actually confused. I'm actually unclear. I'm actually at a loss as to what my dharma is. What is it that I'm meant to pursue? This often happens to us because sometimes there are many opinions around us, there are many expectations around us, there are many pressures and people in our lives who we want to please, and therefore in the noise of all of that, sometimes it's so hard to understand what is my dharma, because there seems to be so many conflicting messages, and in the midst of it I'm also not even hearing my inner voice. So Arjuna says to Krishna, I'm confused about my duty, I've lost all composure because of weakness. I'm asking you to tell me what is the best path for me to lead in this world. What is my dharma? I'm your disciple. Please guide me, please instruct me. So basically the first thing that Krishna is then helping Arjuna to do in the Bhagavad Gita is identify. Now we focus on the material side, which is what you asked about. How do we understand what our swadharma or our purpose in this life is? And before we do that, it's important to know the benefits of living in your dharma. Because when you know what are the benefits of living in your dharma, then it will help you to identify what your dharma is. This is a very famous verse from the Manusmriti. The Sanskrit aphorism is dharma rakshita rakshita. That when you protect your dharma protects you. So I often ask this question, if I asked you to write a paragraph with your non-writing hand, what kind of things would you experience? Can you just shout out to me, like, If you're right-handed and I asked you to write with your left-handed, what would you?
Frustration.
It would be frustrating.
Discomfort.
It would be uncomfortable.
Difficulty.
It would be difficult.
Not clear.
You wouldn't produce a very clear result.
Slow.
It would be slow.
Not satisfying.
It would be dissatisfying to you. You wouldn't feel content. And eventually, because of all of those things, you'd want to give it up. So this is basically what happens when people live outside of their dharma. If you live in your dharma, naturally you'll feel content and satisfied. These are clues which help you to understand, what is my dharma? What are those activities that help me feel content and satisfied? What are those activities that through which I seem to make my best contribution and impact in the world? What are those activities in which when I begin to do them, I feel a natural confidence, I feel a natural positivity, I feel a natural energy? What are those activities which naturally allow me to find balance and good health on a physical, emotional level? And what are those activities through which I feel empowered? I feel like I'm channeling a higher energy. I feel like I'm achieving my potential and unlocking what there is within me. So Krishna basically says to Arjuna that your dharma is basically those activities and that life role that helps you to achieve all of these benefits. Because when you follow your dharma will protect you, and your dharma will deliver you all of these things. And so broadly speaking, Krishna says that there are different types of dharma in the world, different positions that one can take. I'm not going to go into that now, but let me just share with you one other thing. That if you want to now find that dharma, just keep this here. If you want to find that dharma, then the first thing is analyze your personality. So just get to know yourself better. Do a personality test, a DISC test. Do a brainstorm. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What activities do I naturally feel energy in when I do? What are those things that when I embark upon them I seem to lose a sense of time? Just do some analysis of your own personality and you will begin to get a better picture of what your personality type is. Ask others. Find people who know you, who observe you, who have seen some part of your life journey, and get their feedback. They will have many observations and insights which maybe you haven't seen, by which you can understand from their observation, helps you to identify what your dharma may be. And ultimately attempt different things, so that if you think something is your dharma, then just try things out. Do courses, shadow someone who's doing that similar thing that you think you should be doing. Do it as a temporary occupation. A lot of dharma is not found intellectually, it's not found even in discussion, but it's found in just trying things out and finding what fits. And so this is like a broad spectrum. Some people think dharma is just that thing which just magically is revealed to you in a moment of epiphany in the middle of the night. You know, almost like the Isaac Newton moment of the apple dropping. But even when Isaac Newton saw the apple drop, it's not that in that moment he figured it all out, but that moment just triggered a series of thoughts and contemplations which then led to his discovery of gravity. So it takes time, and essentially this is perhaps the most basic formula of what is your dharma. Your passion plus your expertise plus your contribution to the world equals your dharma. one really, really important point to recognize is that Dharma is never selfish. So it's not just that your passion plus your expertise equals your Dharma. Your Dharma is something which is always meant to be used in contribution and service to others. So when your passion plus your expertise is then used to uplift others, to contribute to the world, then it becomes your Dharma. So this is kind of like the broad definition of how to kind of find your Dharma. And yeah, even with this definition that I'm giving you, it's not like it's just going to come like that, but it gives you the guidelines and it gives you a kind of sense of what journey you can go on. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay, hope that helps. Yes, any other comments, thoughts? Yes.
Just a second.
And feel free to be creative. Of course, I'm going on a journey here speaking about Dharma, but if it opens any other thoughts about spirituality, about life in your mind, then feel free to ask about that. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Swami Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. All my respect to you, because you just fulfill, I think, the desire of many people when they are asking you a question, like you did now. You have that ability to put very deep, universal laws into definition like you present right now, that helps simple people like myself to really be able to analyze in a very profound way. And it's that what I'm so appreciating on your personality, that you give everybody the ability. I'm not an intellectual person. I always have intellectual friends, but I'm more the artistic, hard kind of person. And everybody is able to grasp what you are saying. And I mean, this is such a gift to the world. And I must say,
Hopefully.
it's something that I'm a very spontaneous person, and sometimes even if I'm, I don't know, meeting people somewhere in the bus or wherever, sometimes if I feel some nice thing, instead of just keeping it for myself, I'm saying it to the others. So that's why I wanted to just express my very deep appreciation that you are existing, and I think you are really a gift to this world.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
And
I was always inspired by Einstein. He said, if you can't explain it simply enough to a 7-year-old, you don't know it well enough. Now, I'm not saying that I know it well enough and that you guys are like 7-year-olds, but I'm not saying that at all. But I was always inspired by that ultimately the truth must be simple. Ultimately the truth must be accessible. And ultimately the truth must be applicable. If it's not understandable, accessible, and applicable, to me it sounds like it ain't the truth. Because why would the truth just be the monopoly of a few intellectuals or a few highly gifted people? Therefore, actually, the most simple, the most profound spiritual truths are actually the most simple. I often talk about how spiritual learning is not linear. It's not about asking and gaining more and more information, but rather it's like a spiral. And therefore, spiritual learning is such that when you go round and round discussing subject matters from different points of view, then eventually what happens is you hone into an essence which is actually very, very simple and, as I said, understandable and applicable. So I'm trying to do that, but I'll just add to your point that sometimes what I do is I present it like this, like, yeah, Dharma, passion plus expertise plus service. Done. And I may make it sound very simple, and it is simple, but life is complicated and the world is complicated, and you know, maybe some of us are a little complicated up there as well. And therefore it's good, like now we have a framework. What I try to do is I try to provide a framework here, and then I throw it all out to you to not challenge me, but to stimulate and say like, okay, sounds good, I'm on board, clear. But in life, how do I live this? What are the obstacles? What are the complexities that arise? So I think it's both things. But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, and we all need a bit of encouragement, and yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah, Radha Priya Mataji is known for glorifying devotees all the time, so that's very nice quality, I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I have another question to Dharma. Is it in today's time really possible to find and develop your Dharma without a guru? Because I think in further times in the Varnashrama system, it was the duty of the Brahmani to observe the children in school and find out what are their talents. So maybe one child is brilliant in climbing trees, another child is a brilliant swimmer, the next child just likes to sit and think, so he would be a perfect philosopher. But in today's times in school, the talents are suppressed. So by the school system, so when the child is perfect in climbing trees, it is said, oh, you have to sit down and learn mathematics. And yes, so
can we really find our Dharma if we don't have that kind of enlightened advice from a guru or a spiritual figure? That's your question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. When you write this, for me, it is like playing God myself. So you tell us you have to find your Dharma yourself, but I'm not sure if it is possible. In some cases, yes, but I think in most cases, not.
Of course, in the middle step, I've put ask. So there is a natural sense in which we are approaching others who know us well, who know us better, who have wisdom, who have an enlightened perspective. So definitely there's no sense of trying to remove that from the equation. That's very, very much needed. But the reality, as you said, is that we don't grow up with that kind of guidance. We don't grow up with that kind of enlightened wisdom that's being given to us by a guru. That's just the reality of the world we're living in. Therefore, we have to make the best use of a bad bargain. And therefore, we have to try to analyze for ourselves and then find people, develop those relationships, and find spiritual teachers, mentors, coaches. Practically in any field in the world, not just spiritual things, everyone learns from a teacher. So definitely, the second step of asking a guru, asking a teacher, asking someone who can give you a higher perspective is indispensable. So yeah, it's definitely needed. Is that my battery? Is that on? So yes, I agree with you, we should. And I also agree with your point that the modern educational system, you know, that there's this modern idea that you can be anything you want to be. That's the kind of affirmation that people are encouraged, like you can be anything you want to be, which actually can actually be very harmful to people. It's not that you can be anything you want to be, but you can be everything that you're meant to be. Maybe we should adjust the affirmation towards that in our educational system, so that, because when you tell people you can be anything you want to be, we're losing sight of the fact that there's abilities which we have and there's abilities which we just don't have. But the fact that we don't have something is not a limitation, it's not an obstacle. We just have to turn our attention to the things that we do have and focus on those things. So it's not that you can be anything you want to be, you can be everything that you're meant to be. And that means finding the unique contribution that we're meant to make. And yeah, you mentioned that. Einstein said, everyone is a genius. But if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's a failure. And because of this notion in the modern world that you can be anything you want to be, people feel that when they can't become what they really want to be, but which meant maybe they're not wired for, then they're a failure. So that's what's happening in the world we're living in today. So yes, just some responses to you. Yes.
That is a big dilemma in our school system. There are some children, they have brilliant talents, but they are told they are given the feeling they are stupid because they are just not brilliant in mathematics and grammar. But maybe they are just good listeners, or so they are good servants, so they would be good vendors in a shop, but the children are told, oh no, you mustn't be a vendor, only stupid people do that, yeah. You have to go to university and become a professor or something.
And the reason this happens is because people only see one side of Dharma. They see the Swadharma as the all in all. So if your entire picture of life is just the material side, then naturally what people are going to try to do is be as materially successful as they can. But when you know that your material dharma is a means towards your ultimate, deeper spiritual dharma, which is the ultimate happiness and the ultimate success, then you're not so concerned about, you know, being in this position in society, in this world, because you know what, there's a bigger journey to go on, there's a bigger thing I'm aiming for, so I don't need to invest all of my sense of self-worth in what I achieve in this world. But rather, what I achieve in this world is a means towards what I'm going to achieve in my ultimate journey, which is inner fulfillment, inner success, inner connection, and spiritual enlightenment. But because people don't have that perspective, if all you have is the material world, then naturally, you know, they think material success is everything, and material success is defined by, you know, climbing to the top. Thank you.
Okay. I saw your hands, but I also counted before.
Hare Krishna, thanks Maharaj. I just wanted to ask a question around when you protect your Dharma protects you, how you can actually get into this mentality, because I know we often want to go on a retreat or go on yatra somewhere, and I think often people in the UK, I don't know, like they call in sick or they take like extra holiday, and I don't know how we can get into this mentality of, okay, I'm doing my Dharma and this is non-different from me going onto the yatra or going to the dham.
So you're saying that sometimes people, in order to have spiritual opportunities, they end up doing something adharmic, like lying, or is that what you're saying? Yeah. In order to, but if our principle is if you maintain the right way of living and you do things in the right way, then naturally the opportunities will come about and you'll be protected. So how do we balance that? Of course, when you're living in the material world, there's always a sense of, you know, you have to kind of adjust, you have to play the game a little bit, you know, so yeah, maybe something here and there to open up an opportunity is not like the end of the world. It's not that you've sold yourself out on your principles, you know. Sometimes you have to just, you know, Srila Prabhupada, he said, even when a businessman is doing business, or businesswoman, then when they're selling something, they say to the customer, for you, I'm making no profit. Everyone knows it's a lie. You know, they know it's a lie. The business person knows it's a lie, but they just understand this is life, you know, you have to. So sometimes we may, living in this world, do a bit of that, maneuver here and there. But overall, we should try to live by our principles. And when we live by our principles, then ultimately, because we're living in harmony with universal laws, then why will the ultimate universal arrangement of providence not come to assist us? We have to have that confidence. And so, yeah, it's about not selling out on your principles in the world today. Recently did a seminar called the Dharma of Capitalism, and to show how even in the corporate world, when companies and when seriously influential people make decisions not just based on profit and power, but when they make decisions based on principles, then what happens is, even if in the immediate term there seems to be some kind of loss, in the long term there's always growth, there's always development, and there's always newer doors of opportunity which open up. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, and the mode of goodness. So sattva and dharma go hand in hand. So when we live in dharma, when we follow sattva or goodness, then we always have a long-term benefit. And basically, we always have to have that long-term vision. And when you have a long-term vision, then you will embrace dharma. Like that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I have a question, Maharaj. You mentioned that the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. And so after that lady was talking about suppressing the tendencies of the kids at school, the question came to my mind, is there any shastric evidence that the dharma would be influenced by external circumstances? Is there any shastric evidence for that?
So is there any shastric evidence for the fact that an external factor
circumstances can influence at all the dharma?
No, it doesn't affect your dharma, but what it affects is your ability to see your dharma.
Oh yeah, so it brings confusion, as Arjuna was.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like if 30 people tell me, you know, you're not meant to be a doctor, you're meant to be a lawyer, right? It's not that their 30 opinions are going to change my dharma, but what their 30 opinions are probably going to do is confuse me more about actually realizing what I'm meant to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So our educational system, what it basically does is it creates a lot of confusion because it's based on competition, comparison. See, basically it's like this. Imagine two people go into an exam hall and one person sitting next to the other person who just ends up being like the star student. They think like, this must be divine providence. I ain't revised for this exam and I'm sitting next to the star student. So clearly God wants me to copy this person. And imagine you then go and copy that person's answer paper perfectly. And you walk out of the exam hall and you think, I copied it perfectly. I must have. And then you come out of the exam hall and you realize, but everyone had a different question paper. So that's basically what's happening in the world. That everyone is copying everyone else's exam paper, but they don't realize they have a different question. And what the world tells us to do is copy the exam paper, because this is success. The guy next to you is success. So do this. So, of course it's changing also. Hopefully educational systems will change. We have a hope. Apparently they say with AI, I don't know how you feel about AI, but apparently they're saying with AI, what it could bring about in the educational system is personalized education. So many progressive schools are trying to use AI to look at how we can create tailor-made educational programs for students which suit their nature rather than impressing a whole system on them. Now, how far artificial intelligence can go, who knows? But at least even educational systems are realizing we need to go in that direction of personalized education instead of just... Does that help?
Yeah, actually, I couldn't really get the answer, as my question was, is there any shastric evidence? Like, yeah, like I understand the confusion, the external...
No, your dharma cannot be changed.
Yeah, that was mainly my question.
By external forces.
Because we can be delayed, but the dharma would not be changed. We will be delayed.
Yeah.
At worst.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, I have this question maybe based on my little experiences. So we have this reward system everywhere, you know, either we go in the material life or spiritual life. So I feel this as an impediment, like the reward system. Let's say whatever you do, even in the schools, if I see my small kid going to school, you do this and you get that, okay? Yeah, yeah. And the whole Bhagavad Gita principles, the Lord is, you know, teaching that, come out of that reward system, you know, do this, you know, karma and those stuffs. So how do we actually, because even in the spiritual life we see, you know, when I was, you know, having an experience when my wife delivered a baby. After that she was comparing with the other devotees in the temple, you know, she was not able to do service and that, and she was not even able to appreciate what she is doing as a dharma, because that doesn't get an appreciation, that doesn't get a reward. So in this system of reward, where everywhere in the spiritual circle or when we go outside, we, you know, for every act there is a reward.
And sometimes that reward system is taking away from our dharma. So basically, yeah, that's a very good point. So basically, that's why I showed you this slide. We have the wrong definition of success. What do you consider a reward? If we consider position a reward, if we consider power a reward, if we consider profit a reward, if we consider popularity a reward, if we consider number of people who follow us on social media as a reward, then know for sure those rewards are going to take you away from your dharma. But if you look at these things as reward, what makes me balanced, what makes me confident, positive, what allows me to make my most powerful contribution to the world, if you consider these things to be reward, if you orientate your consciousness in that way, then naturally your decisions will be based upon what is going to awaken this. And if your decisions are based upon what awakens this, then your decisions are going to be in line with your dharma, taking you towards your dharma. So basically, again, in Sanskrit they have two words, shreyas and preyas. So shreyas means that which gives you an immediate reward, and preyas means that which gives you ultimate development. And what we're basically doing in the world today is we're selling out ultimate development for immediate reward. And therefore we tell people, put it on your fridge. Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. What feels good now is money. What feels good now is appreciation. What feels good now is the position that you can tell other people you have. But what you want most is these things.
Maharaj, I just have one more extending question. So in the art of parenting, generally it happens with me, you know, when I deal with my kid, by default this, you know, this thought of reward comes, you know, I will tell him that if you do this, if you complete this, you will get that. But is it actually a wrong thing? Because if we see externally outside, all these atomic habits and big books and which comes, they actually based on this platform of reward system. So actually, you know, to give a good art of parenting to the kids or to the other generation, what are your thoughts?
Oh, telling people the benefits and the rewards of something is not a problem. but it's just what do you tell them the benefits and rewards are. If you tell your children these are the benefits and rewards that you have to look forward to, if you instill within them that this is important, then that's a wonderful thing, because then they'll orientate them towards that.
Yeah.
You see, like if you don't want a child to eat too many sweets, you could tell them, if you don't eat this many sweets, then I'll give you like double the pocket money. Or you could tell them, if you don't eat these sweets, you know what, your health is going to be better, you're going to be better, but you're going to be able to achieve more. Basically, we have to inspire them to do the right thing in the context of the reward that it's going to give them.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Just to say also, I am no authority on parenting. Just to add that disclaimer, but I think it will work.
I just had a very quick, very simple question. So when we have something in the area of passion, so we're passionate about something, and something in the area of expertise, but not something necessarily in both. I mean, this is a very simple question. Where should we lean more into, or like how do we kind of start to combine them or find the middle ground?
So if you imagine two circles, one is the things you're good at, and the other circle is the things you really like to do. And generally we say the intersection is your dharma, but then what do you do about all these other things that are not in the intersection? Right?
Yeah,
that's basically question.
As in, it's very clear what's in the passion section and what's in the expertise section, but it's very unclear what's in the middle section. Like that.
Okay. No, but why is that more unclear? Like the things, if you can identify what you're good at, and if you can identify what you like, then why wouldn't you be able to identify what you're good at and you like? If you can individually identify them, then you should be able to identify things that tick both boxes, right?
Well, there seems not to be something which ticks both boxes as of now.
Oh, okay. But then that you have to go on the journey, right? Ask, analyze, and so on and so forth. But one thing I would say is also sometimes you may have an expertise, but we may see that expertise in a very narrow way, and therefore you may feel, no, this expertise, I don't really feel a passion for it. I'm good at it, but I don't really feel a passion for it. But sometimes within expertise, what you can do is broaden your vision of how that expertise can be used. And when you broaden your vision of how that expertise can be used, then you find within that broader definition, there is something that you can do with that expertise that fulfills your passion. Does it make sense? So you can do that. So sometimes it requires one to also broaden their horizon. Or sometimes there might be something that you're really inspired to do, that you're really attracted to doing, like a passion you have. But again, you're seeing it in a very narrow way. Like say, for example, someone says like, I really like that motivational speaker. I really would like to be a motivational, but I have no oratory skills. Like someone may feel like that. I have a passion, but I don't have an expertise for it. But what we encourage them to do is look behind it and try to go to a deeper understanding of why that motivation or the idea of being a motivational speaker inspires you. Maybe it's not so much about being a motivational speaker, but maybe it's more about just being able to inspire people. Now when you bring it down to that, my passion is that I want to inspire and empower people, then you're maybe much more likely to find an expertise that matches with that passion. You see what I'm saying? Because you've broadened your understanding of what your passion is. Does that make sense? So like that, you can think broadly. Are we okay here? Is this okay for everyone? I'm thinking like, is it good to like take a break in between? You can stand up, breathe, and then we can maybe come round back for another like half an hour. And if in the middle anyone, like, it also gives an opportunity for anyone to run out without being embarrassed. No, but if you need to also do some other things, then. So I see hands, so how shall we do it? Shall we take a couple more questions and then take a break? Because the time now is 11:35.
Yeah, so we can do that. A couple questions on break.
Couple questions, then break, and then whoever's inspired, by all means join us again for part 2. So yeah, we'll do that. Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Thank you so much also for your contributions. I was thinking about this point that Sara Madachi mentioned about the school system that is not motivating the kids to do their dharma. So I was studying to become a teacher 1 year, and it was actually, I didn't felt like we don't intend that we will guide the kids to their dharma, because we learned that we should take care of each and everyone and just try to engage every kid in that way that it suits to them. But it was very difficult for me because I couldn't I was not able to like do this, to be so flexible that you can really understand every kid and you will prepare things for every kid. And also in Kali Yuga mostly of us are in passion or in ignorance, so we see the things that aren't true as truth and the truth as fault, and we act impulsively, so we just do the things that feels good now and not what we really want. And especially as when you're a kid, then maybe you just don't want to study something, and then it's like a loss forever because in this moment you just didn't want to. So I was thinking, is it really possible to get to this point that we can educate people to become the best version of themselves when we're still in this materialistic world? Because as I think it's better if like a guru have a couple of disciples, right? Very few, then he could be really specific and individual. And when it's not like this, we cannot say that the school system is like completely wrong. Or
yeah, we're working in a limited world, and of course we're not here just passing judgment and saying. But yeah, ultimately, like even in the school system, they realize when you have smaller classrooms, it's much better. Smaller classes, because there's more personal contact, there's more personal attention, there's more personalized approach. And then there's limitations in terms of how we do that in the world. So of course, we can only work within the limitations we have, but the more we talk about this, and the more we raise this in the consciousness, at least as an aspirational value, is established within teachers and within students as well, that I'm not just part of a system that's meant to just put me through a conveyor belt so that I become a product, but rather I am a unique product and I have to find my unique contribution. So the more we talk about this, even if we're not able to change the educational system, at least individuals in themselves who are within that system will be very clear that yes, I'm in this educational system, but I realize I have my own calling. You understand? So it's important to proliferate this knowledge, because it's about changing values, right? So yeah, we're in a world where we don't have control over the, you know, educational system, and yeah, we understand what the educational system is doing is trying to give everyone a baseline. So you learn maths, English, you know, science, you learn a bit of everything, so you have a baseline foundation. So we understand that there are certain reasons why it functions like that, but yeah, ultimately we have to, everyone must understand this principle deeply, even if our system isn't tailored in that way, that everyone is an individual and everyone has an individual contribution to make.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay. Is there truly unselfish contribution, or do we subconsciously do it because we get satisfaction? So it's actually a selfish behavior.
Yes. Really good question. Is there any true selflessness in this world? Because it even seems often when we do a so-called selfless act, there's still some amount of even if it's not a material reward, some amount of I feel good about myself, I have, you know. So yes, we can say there's a continuum from selfishness to selflessness. So selfishness is selfishness in one's actions and one's motivations. Right? Does that make sense? And then as you move along this continuum, then what happens is there's selflessness, there's selfishness in one's intention, but there's selflessness in one's acts. But when you move along that continuum even more, and you deeply spiritually connect yourself, and you realize yourself to be an instrument of divinity, then you don't just have selfless acts, but you also have selfless motivation as well. Because your only objective is to express love.
Thank you.
So there's basically a continuum there, right? Selfish acts and selfish intentions. Selfish intentions, but at least selfless acts to try to culture more of a selflessness in motivation. And eventually when there's divine connection, because one is invested with love from their divine connection. You see, it's like if you think of divine connection as a vertical relationship and service as a horizontal relationship here, then what happens is when you're drawing love from connection with divinity, then all you're needing to do here is redistribute that love. But when you're not drawing that love from divine connection, then in your relationships in this world, there will always be some level of exchange, because one has not become fulfilled, one has not become complete. So once we become complete through deep spirituality and deep spiritual connection, then one can give without any sense of, because their giving is a sharing of love. And I think we have glimpses of that. Like, it's not that that is such a utopian concept that we have glimpses of that when we truly do something like without any expectation. You may say, yeah, but you still feel good about it. But sometimes in that moment, you're not doing it with a conscious thought that now let me do this because I'm going to feel good about it. The feeling good about it is just something that just comes. But the first thought is let me do it. And then the second thought is, oh, I actually feel quite good by doing that. But the first thought is let me serve. Do you see? So there's a difference. There's a difference between if I say like, remind me your name. Your name? George. George, yeah. There's a difference where I say, if I'm like, oh, George is there, let me, if I do something for him, if I do this for him, then I'm going to feel really good, and then I do it for you. And there's a difference between when I come in front of you and I'm just like, let me do it. And then later on I realized, oh wow, that was really nice. But so service, in deep spirituality, service becomes the first consideration. And the feeling and the happiness which naturally comes from that is just a concomitant consequence that you gladly accept. But it's not the driving force. But in the beginning, while we're not on that level of spirituality, it may be the impetus.
Or what I was trying, or my doubt was, what if subconsciously, because when I grew up,
that
so
can also
subconsciously
be there.
I do it, because my
because
first
you've
thought
done it so many times before,
Yes.
and you've got that feeling, you're just drawn towards doing it again.
It's a habit.
Yeah, that could also be true. But in deep spirituality, we understand that the service is the reward. The opportunity to serve is the reward. It's hard to conceive of, no?
So thank you very much.
Yeah,
We're going to have a break now, and then in the second part we will start with Sarah's question. We also and we have one online question as well. So
okay, sure. Yeah, so we can stretch your legs, and I don't know if there's
10 minutes break. Okay. Thank you.
If you can join us, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
I still feel not so comfortable that my name is only my name. If someone else's name, that's why but actually it's fine, but at least it's also okay when like the teacher reminds use the name, the capital letters again. Okay, that's fine. Do you know anyone about
This is not perfect either. This is special. This is not Sunday feast. This is like, This is sort of question and answers.
For Krishna, just do your work, focus on that, to find the moment now. Do this for Krishna, and yeah, you can offer it. Yes, that's something I'm dreaming of as well, because that helps. Well, Krishna would be next to me, but I can't see him.
This is part of it says there's all just ready to just follow and then so we try to engage with that's how it is very nice. That's why I asked you. I think it will still work. At least it's in the one we know. The problem is in the internet connection. The Wi-Fi internet connection for this to work. Because it connects to cloud.
Yeah, I guess
Please go into but then I found it really because oh, this is such a and I only found him 2 weeks ago.
he was on the stage
I'm also making it
I was born in Greece.
this would be
I'm in the business manager. Medical device, sell devices. Medical device. Things they use when they go so he's there. Actually, before I was working for a Korean company, I was doing international business. I can tell you actually my current employer was my previous customer. Picking everything up. I decided I was very shy. I was all the time on that plane before. Because I was covering Europe, Middle East, Africa. Sometimes I went like Latin America to Korea because Korea is my boss. I was very tired, to be honest. I haven't been born, but it's not it doesn't make me happy.
In winter, it means
I have a good a couple of years ago.
And you never came
Whatever I do on my own research now.
You're from
everything that I do, whether reading books or online research or
You're very
yes, no, I like debating also with different religions and nationalities.